Welcome to this explainer. Okay, when you think of modern global football, what's the first thing that comes to mind? It's a massive, multi-billion-dollar machine, right? We're talking glitz, colossal stadiums, astronomical salaries, and broadcast deals that are just mind-boggling. It's the undisputed king of global sports entertainment.
But take a second and ask yourself, who really built these incredible powerhouses? If you had to picture the founders of today's mega clubs, I bet you're imagining, oil tycoons, mega corporations, or maybe some wealthy 19th century industrialists puffing cigars in a fancy boardroom while drawing up business plans.
Okay, let's dive into this because the reality is actually a massive paradox. While today's modern owners are billionaires, sovereign wealth funds, and global brands, the actual founders, well, they were Victorian rectors, curates, and members of local church Bible classes. Yeah, you heard that right. The richest, most intensely secular sports clubs on earth were actually started as humble church youth groups.
Section 1. Escaping the Victorian Slums. So to really understand how this happened, we gotta travel back to the grim reality of 19th century industrial England. We are talking about vast slum districts just riddled with poverty, crime, and squandered family wages. During the Industrial Revolution, cities like Manchester, Liverpool, and Southampton were absolutely packed with rural and Irish migrants. And the conditions were brutal. We're talking filthy, disease-ridden terraces, cold, cramped hovels, and factory workers enduring mind-numbing daily labor. Tragically, for a lot of these folks, the only real escape was the local pub. Rampant alcoholism plagued the working class, and it led to just widespread domestic misery and complete despair.
And this deep despair, it bred extreme street violence. Specifically something known as scuttling. Now, have you ever heard of this? These were mass gang brawls in Victorian Manchester that could literally involve up to 500 men at a single time. It was an absolute crisis of youth violence and social decay. Local rectors and church leaders living right there in the slums were desperately trying to find a way to stop this bloodshed and somehow save the young men in their parishes.
Section 2. Cultivating Christian Manliness.
So how exactly did the church respond to this massive social crisis? Well, they didn't just preach from the pulpit. They actually turned to a hugely popular 19th century framework called Christian Manliness. This was a Victorian Protestant movement that forged a direct link between physical prowess and health with moral virtue and gentlemanly conduct. The social reformers of the time genuinely believed that building physical strength was the absolute key to building moral character. To them, organized physical exertion was like a direct antidote to the moral and physical degeneration they were seeing in the slums.
And this wasn't just some fringe idea either. It spread like wildfire through popular literature by writers like Charles Kingsley and Thomas Hughes. It was heavily promoted at elite public schools like Thomas Arnold's Rugby School. In fact, this exact philosophy is what directly led to the creation of the YMCA, the Young Men's Christian Association, back in 1844. The whole aim across the board was to save the working class from degeneration through wholesome, structured exercise.
Section 3. Churches build football giants.
And this brilliantly illustrates how this exact Victorian philosophy directly birthed the Premier League giants we know and watch today. Let's walk through the logical progression these church leaders followed, step by step. So during the 19th century, trade unions fought for, and eventually won, Saturday afternoons off for workers. Now, church leaders actually panicked a bit, realizing that free time usually meant more time at the pub. So step 1, they provided wholesome summer recreation, usually cricket. But then, step 2, they needed an activity for the freezing winter months when cricket just wasn't an option. So step 3, they formed football teams. Step 4, these organized Saturday matches successfully gave workers a community focus, keeping them away from the deadly trap of gambling and drinking on their days off.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is seeing this mapped out, we are looking at some of the most wealthy, successful, secular football clubs in the world today. Manchester City, Everton, Tottenham Hotspur, Southampton, Aston Villa. And then look at their original church foundations right next to them. St. Mark's Church, St. Domingo's Chapel, All Hallows Church. It is absolutely wild to see how direct this lineage is. These massive global brands were literally born in local parishes.
Let's zoom in on a specific micro-narrative to really bring this to life. Look at Manchester City. Today, they're a global powerhouse with seemingly limitless resources. But back in 1880, they were founded by a local rector, Arthur Connell, and his 25-year-old daughter Anna, right at St. Mark's Church. And their primary goal? It definitely wasn't to win trophies. It was to provide a literal lifeline, a safe alternative to that brutal 500-man scuttling street gang culture we talked about earlier. Their very first rough games were played on a patch of wasteland right outside the front of the church. We can also trace the rapid evolution of Everton. It starts with a Methodist chapel, St. Tamongos, opening its doors in 1871. By 1878, Reverend Ben Swift Chambers formed a football club for his Bible class, basically just looking for a winter alternative to cricket. But here's the crazy part. Within just a year, the team became so incredibly popular with non-church members that they had to rename it Everton FC to represent the whole district. By 1888, which is just 10 years after starting as a Bible class, this little church team became a founding member of the Professional Football League.
But, we really have to point out the heartbreaking contrast between these selfless founders and the extreme wealth of modern football. As author Peter Lupson's incredible research reveals, John Ripshire, the Bible class teacher who founded Tottenham Hotspur and faithfully served as their president for 11 years, ultimately fell into severe ill health and poverty. He tragically died blind in a workhouse and was buried in an unmarked pauper's grave. It is a stark, truly sobering reminder of the humble, sacrificial service that built these billion-dollar empires.
Section 4. A modern secular religion.
Now, as we move into the 20th and 21st centuries, football completely outgrew its religious founders to become a massive, global, secular religion of its own. To really understand this shift, we can look at sociologist Emil Durkheim's theories. Notice how modern football flawlessly mimics religious community structures. Fans regularly congregate its sacred spaces, which are our modern stadiums. They perform collective rituals through standardized chants, songs, and wearing their club colors. This creates what Durkheim called collective effervescence, where individuals just fuse into this massive, emotionally unified community. And of course, the superstar players themselves become sanctified, almost godlike figures to the fans.
And sometimes, actually, this isn't even just a sociological metaphor. We have literally gone from the Church of England to the Church of Maradona. I mean, during the 1980s in Naples, traditional street shrines dedicated to the Madonna were subtly changed by locals into shrines honoring the footballer Diego Maradona. In Argentina, fans literally founded the Church of Maradona in 1998. We've essentially gone from holy water to the hand of God. The sport has evolved from its pious working-class origins to the literal, tangible worship of its players.
So the crucial point is, where does this leave the sport today? Consider this really striking thought from author Peter Lupson. After spending 11 years researching these church origins, he argues that modern commercialism, the relentless pursuit of profit, the sky-high ticket prices that lock out poorer fans, is a direct betrayal of the sport's founding spirit. A spirit that was fundamentally about providing recreation, fellowship, and a safe haven for the absolute poorest in society.
Which leaves us with this provocative final question to ponder. As football continues its unstoppable ascent as the ultimate global business, will it ever rediscover the pure community ethos it was originally built upon? Or has it completely permanently left its humble, pious origins behind in the Victorian slums? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. I hope this structured look through history sheds a completely new light on the true soul of the beautiful game. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and I'll catch you next time.